Thank you for tuning into the podcast of Eden Church NJ, where we take care of Jersey because Jesus loves Jersey. Hit the follow button, share this episode with a friend, and I'll see you soon. Let's get into it. So it's been 3 weeks since the grand opening of Eden Church. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good. I keep telling people, I just love that we have finally started. The anticipation was killing me.
For real,
I don't know about you. But it just feels good to now be getting into a rhythm and actually wrap my brain around what this looks like to do every week, because the buildup was crazy. But yeah, it was awesome. I'm definitely loving it. What about you? How you feel?
No, that's real. I feel like there's like a point you reach where it's just like, yo, I just want to start. Like, I'm so done. Especially, event planning is not my gift. And so having to do that over and over all year long has been like, I mean, not that we're done with events or anything, but events aren't our only thing we have going on to evangelize and all these different things. So I don't know. I'm feeling inspired. I'm encouraged. I'm exhausted. I'm eager for more of God and more in our community, more grace, more goodness, more power. It's just so much. And it's finally here. Like, it's really actually here. It really does feel kind of like having that first child and you go from having the baby in the hospital and everyone's like kind of helping you. There's like professionals helping you take care of the baby and all this stuff. And they're like, all right, time to go home.
But wait, I don't know what I'm doing.
Wait, I'm supposed to take this thing home now and care for it? You trust me to do that? All right, let's see how it goes. So it kind of feels like that. But I know last time we had left off, I think in kind of February, me telling Jordan that, you know, we were definitely going to try to plant a church February 2023. And then feeling like the Holy Spirit turned into a tailwind behind us, just like shoving us very forcefully, yet kindly in the direction that we all always knew we were heading. And then I think we can skip forward to a few months later in May when we were going through what was our second assessment, I think, at the time with Orchard Group.
Right. We've been assessed.
I know. I'm telling you. What was that like? Like, what was it like going through Orchard Group's assessment?
Yeah, well, Orchard Group's assessment technically started for us, 2 years prior in 2020, right?
Maybe 3.
3?
Yeah, 3 years prior.
Okay. Yeah, because back, if we rewind a bit, back in 2020, right, the world's shutting down, things are crazy. You're like, maybe I should leave my job at Monday. We thought then about planting. And so that's when we reached out to Orchard Group for let's start this process. Let's do an assessment. And that was the first time that they had to do their assessment with Stadia, which is another church planting network, but the assessment was online. So
that's crazy.
Usually it's a whole big conference. You go, you don't even have to think about your kids. You just leave them with a babysitter, fly down somewhere. And then it's like this intensive 3-day program to be assessed. But ours was online. So what was included with that? You want to talk about it?
The online one, I don't know. It was just kind of weird, honestly. The Stadia did their best, and it's not what they do anymore. But it was just kind of like a 3-day like online thing. And it was, my shoulders really hurt from hunching over a computer for a super long time. We had to like build a ministry. Shout out to the Barrahonas in West Palm Beach, Florida, and the Simonettes in Baltimore, Maryland. I think it's how you pronounce it, with a D, not with a T, Baltimore. And yeah, but those are really good friends of ours still from that assessment. I feel like that's the main thing I honestly remember from it. But yeah, we went through that, and that's how we decided that I would take the job at Renaissance. And then May 2023, what was it? Yeah. So we had kind of picked, I guess, back up because we were pretty much halfway already through our assessment with Orchard Group. So they kind of like rehashed some of the information we had gotten. Like after the assessment, they give you like a full report. They gave us like a full report, right?
Yeah. Let me get into that for a minute, because some people might be listening and thinking through, like, do I want to do that assessment with Stadia? And it's very thorough. It's kind of like a spiritual colonoscopy. Like, they will look at your finances. They will look at your marriage. You will do a personality test. You will do a strengths finders assessment. You will do a spiritual gift assessment. Like, I felt like everything they could possibly ask me about. We had to get quizzed on our Bible knowledge. I was sitting there trying to sing a little song in my head, like Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers.
I did not.
I like
do
the
well
Shaolin version.
Yeah, but it's very thorough. So I think when we circle back around, and we're ready to really get going, they could just kind of pick back off some of those tests and assessments.
And I think too, one of the biggest things they had given us from Stadia was like our marriage at the time. I feel like 2020 was a crisis for a lot of us. Amen. And we definitely,
Amen.
I remember we went through it. And shout out to Jeff White as well, a Redeemer, giving us some counseling. But it just, yeah. And I think they could see that in the assessment. And that was one of the biggest things that, they really just told us to work on our marriage, honestly. And
work on our marriage.
And we did that. And other things, I think social stuff too. And just, I don't know. But it was helpful, like the report from Stadia.
Yeah, it was very helpful. I think it was the first time that I realized that my poor self-esteem wasn't just something that like I struggled with personally, but like it could affect other people. It could affect like, whether or not I should plant a church. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. There's some things I just kind of saw as like my own issue, but I didn't see how that could affect, trying to build something and lead something and how that could come into play. That was definitely impactful for me.
That's real.
They also, I remember, kind of reminded us that jumping straight from, a big corporate tech job into church planting would be a big jump. And so, there was some ministry experience that you could go and try to get. And I'm glad that you did before we planted. I certainly, looking back now, see how valuable that was.
Yeah, definitely. So then we get to May in San Francisco, that we had to come out. That was like Orchard Group's last step. Well, one of their last steps was to fly to San Francisco. And I remember it was really dope being like, that was my first time ever in San Francisco, and met with a few people and talking through a lot of the similar things, but then also getting really a lot more practical what I felt. I really liked how Orchard Group had changed the end of their process to just get really practical and be like, all right, so what you about to say to these people? You about to be evangelizing and all this? What you gonna do? Like, what you pretend like I'm North Jersey Nick at a coffee shop? What you about to say? Like, what's your spiel? And yeah, just get into a bunch of other practical things like that, while also going over and making sure that we see eye to eye on key things that I just hadn't considered before.
Key things like what?
I think, I don't know, like certain theological things, but even just practical things. Like if you're hell bent on this specific area, like, are you really never going to come up off that? Even if like mad reasons point to the fact that you might think it's about to be in Hackensack, but what if all the property and the people and all this stuff this groundswell just starts in Jersey City? You're not going to do it?
So
like, are you stubborn on certain things that you shouldn't be stubborn on? I guess I hadn't considered like, oh, if certain things are going to be, if I'm going to hold tightly to things that a network thinks I shouldn't, that means that we're not good partners. Those are just things I hadn't even considered before. And obviously we do see eye to eye on those types of issues, which is why Orchard Group was the first planted network that we joined. But I don't know, I just hadn't even thought through those types of practical things that can get in the way and are actually important when you get into the process of planting a church and you're partnered with a network. I feel like, yeah, if we hadn't talked about those things and they can come up later, I feel like that can implode a plant very quickly.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just glad that they do their due diligence on a lot of different things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, San Francisco will always be a special memory for me because that was when we got our big yes. Like even before we left, they had already told us like, all right, you know what, we do want to work with you guys. And so, we got to talk through kind of the contract and, next steps while we were even out there. And man, just like after 10 years of praying and thinking about this, I felt like that was such a special moment, and we were in a new place. Like, it's so memorable now looking back that that's when we like really got the open door to plant a church. How did that feel for you?
Right. Looking back, I'm like, I feel like I can still see exactly where we were sitting at this table with Nick and his lovely wife, Rachel, and Luke, and them telling us. And I feel like I tried way too hard to keep my cool. Like, I feel like in that moment, I could have just stood up, flipped the table, and screamed at the top of my lungs, like, ah! But I remember we got back in the car, and I remember just being like, yo, we just sat there for like 5 minutes, and we're like, we're church planters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as of 5 minutes ago, we are church planters. And that just, I don't know, my mind exploded, I feel like, in that moment, and just so many emotions, and just like a rush of just a culmination of so many years of prayers and thoughts and conversations and assessments and questions and doubts all come into this one moment. Like, go. It just, it was crazy.
That was so good. All right. So what happened after we got the yes and the open door? What did we...
From there, I feel like things started to move way faster than I realized they would. I feel like from that moment on, we were working at Eden Church in some capacity.
True.
Because from then, like, literally the very next month, we started, all our profiles and stuff are set up internally with Order Group. We're scheduling a time to film our promo video, and with Paolo, who is an absolute beast.
Mm-hmm.
And in June, we started fundraising and having so many different conversations, and like already starting to put together a thorough prospectus about what we're doing and how much we're trying to raise and what are the things we want to accomplish and the ways we want to bless the community. And
don't lie, you already had
all this stuff. That's a fact.
You've had a plan and everything.
That's actually true. Yeah, I didn't have to put it together, but I had to make it look nicer though. I put it in Canva or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Got my little prospectus tight and brought it down to like 10 pages from like 50 or something like that. And just like it just became so real, and like us having to have conversations with people. And I feel like every single conversation that I had, the idea began to crystallize a bit more. Like every single fundraising conversation, every single friend conversation I had about like, yeah, we're about to do this thing. It just started to become more and more real to me. Like, I feel like because when the first yes, with Orchard Group and thinking about it, it still wasn't like full. It was so fragile that I feel like it still wasn't like, this is 150% happening. Like in my mind, I'm so logistics driven. I'm like, I can see all the steps that need to still happen before this becomes official. Mm-hmm. And so for me, in my mind, having these conversations and having other people capture the vision and be like, wow, that's dope. Mm-hmm. And like internally, not ever saying this, but in these conversations, I'm like, you think it's dope? Like, like you think this is a good idea too? Because when I say it, I feel like I sound insane. And anyway, I feel like it just made it more formed in my mind.
Yeah, definitely solidifies
as a real thing. So
I'm still feeling that as we talk with people. And I mean, I know we just planned it 3 weeks ago, but it still feels so fresh and new. Like I'm still kicking myself like, wait, are we really doing this? But we just got back from a conference, and we could talk about that later. Just every time like we meet with someone, talk with someone, it's like, wow, you're a pastor. We're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. And then I remember like all that fundraising, we're like flying all across the country and holding all these meetings. And that was, we're not like big travel bugs or anything like that. So I feel like us flying all these different places and talking to all these different people and having all these Zoom meetings, it just became a lot because I was still working at Renaissance too. So, I was still an executive pastor. And even in that time, it wasn't public that I was leaving to plant a church.
Right.
So I'm like having all these conversations.
Yeah. So when did you tell people?
In like fundraising conversations?
Yeah. No, at Renaissance. Like, so you're saying we knew we were planting, but when did you tell Jordan? When did we tell Renaissance? What did that look like?
That's a good question. So I had told Jordan and Lester that something like this was about to happen, and I could just sense it in the spirit. Probably like October, November 2022. Okay. So that was the first time I had ever we would have regularly recurring pastors meetings and lunches. And it was during one of those. I remember we were kind of praying for each other, and I was like, yeah, I'm just really, this church planting thing is coming back up. It's resurrecting. And I think I really need to stop being disobedient. And, so that was the first time I had told them. And then I like solidified that in February, like I'm going to do it soon. And with it telling Jordan. And then, and then we told everybody at Renaissance in August. So I guess like 3 months or so after we got the yes from Orchard Group. Mm-hmm. It was like August, something like right before a church and chill or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, I know several people have reached out to us and asked about what that was like to leave a church that you were working at before. So how was that conversation taken when you brought it to Jordan and Lester?
I think the very first conversation, I feel like they were a little, I'm totally trying to read their mind and probably reading it poorly, but I feel like they were a little confused, like, what is happening right now? Like that conversation back in October, November, probably because I wasn't super clear or even super formed on what was happening. I just was like, I really feel like we need to be back in New Jersey and just starting to go in that direction. And I was like, I don't even know what that means yet. I was like, I don't even know if that means plant a church or be a lead pastor at a church in New Jersey, but I just feel God driving me back home. And I don't know what that's going to look like in a few months, but I feel like it's not going to be too long. And so I feel like they were a little confused, trying to be supportive, but like, all right, word, we'll pray for that. And, you have our blessing and support, and, obviously don't do anything too abrupt. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, but I like that. That means you were letting them in on the process, because how many people would just think about it, pray about it, and then decide like, hey, just, I'm out. Like, and then that probably doesn't feel great. So it's probably hard to leave well if you don't let them in on the process.
That's a good point. Yeah.
There's so much as a team of pastors you guys were sharing with each other, praying for each other on a weekly basis that, it makes sense that you would let them in.
That's a good point. And then in that way, it was about a year and 2 or 3 months from the time I had told them to the time I actually offboarded. So it definitely gave them what I felt is a long runway for a number two. I think a number one, they would need a lot longer runway than that. But yeah, I definitely felt like they responded really well. And, that was, I feel like when we met Jordan and Jessica, they met us as prospective church planters. Right. So it's not like it was ever a surprise when these conversations came back up. And it colored our relationship. And it always has, because that's literally how they met us, They didn't know us before Jesus and before considering ministry and all that good stuff. And then we also got introduced to some other networks too after that, right? Like we then in September, I think Josh Simonette, once again in Baltimore, and James Roberson out in BK, Bridge Church in Brooklyn, introduced us to Rick Burge, the man, the myth, the legend at Strategic Launch Network himself. And then Adam Mutasib, also in Baltimore, introduced us to Times 12, and they wound up becoming our other networks later. But what was that like for you? Like they're just thinking of like dragging you through all these assessments and talking about my hometown and, like, talking about this place that I'm from that's so important and overlooked. And I don't know, what was that like making you go through? We did 4 assessments, was it total?
I don't know. I lost count because it was so many. Yeah, I knew, okay, so I grew up in Virginia, and I always knew I didn't want to stay there long term. I don't think that Jersey was somewhere that I
Yes, it was.
that I like wanted to be or thought I would end up at. But, I've always had the personality that's much more just along for the ride and down for an adventure. So where we ended up, I feel like wasn't the biggest deal. I think coming from New York City, And we had been talking about it. So my heart was prepped and ready. Like I knew we were going to end up in New Jersey. I thought maybe 10, 20, 30 years down the road, we might end up in New Jersey. I just didn't know when it was going to be. But I think too, that the fact that we had lived there for that 1 year, 8 years prior, and your family was out here, we had been out here enough that it started to feel like home. Like I felt like Jersey was calling me back too, because it was familiar, because it was comfortable, because I was looking forward to hopefully being able to purchase a home for the first time and having a yard and being able to garden, like things that you can't really do that easily in New York City. I had always wanted more space and, like a fixer upper. I've always talked about wanting to be able to fix up a home, and you have to be able to purchase that to do it. And even if you purchase something in the city, renovations is just like lots of red tape and not such an easy thing to do. So in some ways, I don't know that I was like, yay, New Jersey. I was just like, yes, I get to like buy a house and have a yard and kind of just move towards this life I had always envisioned for myself.
Mm-hmm. No, that's real. That's real. And then how is it like, explaining this vision that we were having? But I feel like that really, in a lot of ways, I was driving for a long time. And yeah, what was that like?
Say the question again.
So like in these assessments we talked about and moving, like what was it like after, gaining all these partnerships and talking to different people about what we were trying to do. But I feel like for a long time, this, you hadn't lived in New Jersey long, or hadn't really had like a deep love for like the people of New Jersey yet. Mm-hmm. And what was that difficult to do? Was it confusing at times? I would just imagine that. Yeah, I don't know. Let me not put words in your mouth.
No, you aren't. No, I'm just kidding. I definitely wrestled. I mean, for the last 10 years with what I felt like God was very clearly, succinctly, strongly putting on your heart. It wasn't necessarily equal for me. And I think, the way that God calls people or couples into ministry, because we've talked to a lot of different people now along the way, that, it can be different for everyone. But I just kept asking God, like, I wish that you would just break my heart for New Jersey the same way that you've clearly broken Brandon's heart for New Jersey, because I really wanted to feel that pull and that calling. And for me, it just wasn't necessarily there. So, I'm still probably wrestling through what that means. I think there's a sense of like needing to trust and obey, even if you don't fully have all the pieces and all of the understanding that I was trying to walk in. And just the reality too, that like I could lean into this strength that I have of being a flexible person who is along for the ride and down for an adventure. Like God probably knew that, right? When he put us together, you were going to have a plan for our family and for this ministry. And if I was like, absolutely not, and sticking, digging my heels in, like, that's not my plan, that would have been really hard. So, yeah, that's kind of how I wrap my head around what that was like for me.
That's good. And then you mentioned something with the house purchase, our first home purchase ever in North Jersey. And then we immediately decided to simultaneously start our first Bible study and do a construction project. All the tests. And we did a good job. I'm not gonna lie. We're actually sitting in the middle of this finished construction project right now.
It's not finished.
I just can't even.
I mean that with all of my heart and soul. No, that's just me though. I look around our house and I love it. I do. But there's just like, oh, I want to fix that. I want to change this. I want to do that. That's just how my brain works. There's just always another project to do. Yeah. Well, two things come to mind when I think about that. One, we kind of had to do the construction project at that time. And I know it did sort of
Tell
run
us
into
why.
our first
We had to.
Bible study. But we had decided, like, if there was going to be one project we could start to do on the house, it was going to be in the kitchen. The kitchen was really dated. There was old vinyl flooring that's just basically like a big old plastic sheet on the ground that's made to look like tile, but it's not actually tile. It was red and it was just ugly. We had a big white refrigerator. You know, all the appliances were white. They were pretty old. The dishwasher, remember? The dishwasher trays were like burnt out. Like there was like holes in the trays of the dishwasher. And what else? The cabinets were just like, you know, old particle board wood. So we were like, all right, let's get to work on this kitchen. And the first thing to do was the flooring. And we knew that there was wood underneath the vinyl. And we started to pull that up and in doing so, uncovered that there was actually asbestos in the glue of the vinyl. So when we went on a trip in the summer with my family down to Virginia, that was the perfect time to kind of have a crew come in and do that asbestos removal. So the timing of it sort of lined up that we needed to have it happen that way. But I also think it kind of reminds me that, you know, in church planting, I don't know if it's always this way in like ministry for anyone, if you're like, have been a pastor for 10, 20 years, but maybe right now, because it's so new and fresh, I think we just couldn't, like, it was really hard to say no to like, let's push back the Bible study, or like, let's change this, or let's do that. Like at the time, it was kind of like pushing forward ahead, like let's do this. It was almost
like do or die. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it started to feel like every single thing we did, it was like, no, we have to do it, and it has to happen now, no matter
that's
what
I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, that's real. Because
like we scratched the floors,
yeah, literally,
because we couldn't wait to do this Bible study, and we're rolling this.
Which honestly, as counterintuitive as it sounds, Mark McGee, if you're listening, close your ears. If I could go back, I probably wouldn't have done a Bible study as the first thing, because I mean, I'm in full transparency, because whatever, I feel like it has the potential, not that this is exactly what it did with us, but it has the potential to just draw people who are not really interested in mission. They're just like already church affiliated, who like folks who just they're looking for something real specific that they feel like they can get. And that's not what you need at the beginning of a church plant, actually. If anything, that can then turn into a community that you're like is draining you of what you need to genuinely pour into people who need it, not just who are looking for something really like niche and specific, who already probably have community, or like already have a robust walk with Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, so the types of people who are going to want to come into a random person's home and study the Bible that they weren't already studying the Bible with. Because for us, again, like we started Eden Church, like in a lot of ways, people wise from scratch. Like it was just me, you, and the kids. Like it wasn't like we were like sent out with a huge team, or, you know, like us and 15 of our friends got together and we're like, yo, we're all going to move to this town and plant a church together. Like nothing, you know what I mean? It was literally us. And so I don't know if that, I just, anyone else in that scenario, I wouldn't suggest that as the first activity, because it just, I don't know, it did something in that season that I don't know.
You think it was given like home churchy vibes? Like,
not necessarily, because not necessarily.
Or?
No, I don't think it did, only because we were intentional about culture super early on. And I feel like anyone who was around for 5 minutes knew that just wasn't what we were doing. Not that home churches are bad, but that just isn't what we had decided to do or start. But anyway, for whatever it's worth. And then the very next month, we found out the news that we were pregnant.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thanks, Miss Rachel.
Which just like, I'm so lame. Like, why? Hilarious.
That was actually an answer to prayer. We had been fighting over number 4 for a minute. There was some good months. We were going back and forth, and clearly the Lord was on my side. So.
Oh my Lord, have mercy on us all.
That was crazy timing, though. Like, yeah, here we are. We had already decided. We moved out here. We're making steps to plant a church, and then it was like, oh, and you're gonna have a baby.
Which just happens to way too many church planters, I'm noticing. And we just got back from a conference as we're recording this, and the amount of people that have had these types of situations near their launch date is just hilarious to me.
Children are a blessing.
Right. Yeah, little blessings. And yeah, so we found that out. And I remember you called me. This is just a picture of how much we were fighting over this. And I mean, like, mostly friendly fighting, but sometimes we'd actually get annoyed. You called me on the way back home from a girls' night in the city and let me know when you were like 15 minutes out from home. You were like, yo, you just need to take a seat because I have something to tell
Sit
you.
down.
I was like, oh, Lord, what's she about to tell me? About to break our marriage apart? And she was just like, I'm pregnant, and hung up.
That's the way to do it, ladies. That's how you should tell your man right there.
Fuming. I'm screaming at the phone. I was tight, I'm not going to lie. So we'll leave that there. That was November. Found out we were pregnant. And then I don't even remember. Oh, then we had a Christmas party.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah, tell me about that. This was like your big brainchild.
Whoa. Yeah.
How did you decide we're going to do a Christmas party and then go about planning that?
I feel like this set the tone for the rest of pre-launch for us, honestly. Because I think after that Bible study concluded, not after, but before, honestly, we started thinking about like, what do we need to do? And I remember talking with Jordan about this too. And he helped me come up with, for sure, just like a big thing we needed to do to be like, we're here, but this is what we're doing. This is what our community is going to be like, and introduce people to just what we're doing, and that this isn't going to be, and also just breaking down some presuppositions people might have about church with events. I think it can just be good for so many things. And yeah, we just wanted to just literally the goal was just to throw the most fun Christmas party in the area that year. Like if anyone had went to another Christmas party, that they would have come to ours and be like, actually, that one was more fun. And no matter what kind of Christmas party it was that they went to. And I feel like we accomplished that for most of the people there, for real.
It was. That was so much fun.
That was big. We like told everybody we knew. What did we have? Like 75 people came. It was like the first thing we ever did.
Which DJ did you get?
Oh yeah, DJ Wala came through. Oh man, that was so lit. And DJ Wala was out there, and then they were telling us at the venue we were in, Remy Ma had her kid's birthday party the day after us.
Oh, yeah, that's a dope venue.
In the same venue in Teaneck on Cedar Lane. Yeah. So dope. Grand Lux venues. And she did a great job, Lucy.
She did.
Setting everything up. It was so beautiful, and the food was slapping. And
we asked for a black Santa. And I don't think you can just order it. It was also like 6 feet tall. It was like this big, she had all these like big decorations and photo ops or whatever. Like, all right, we got to have a black Santa. And she couldn't get one. So I think they just like painted it. Like she like custom painted it.
She had it painted
for our party. So yeah.
Wow. And two Nutcracker men too. Black Nutcracker men. That one was fire with the moss wall. Anyway, that party was really, really lit. And I feel like was just actually we have a picture framed from it somewhere around here of us all raising a toast to Eden and everything that it was about to become, and all the people from Renaissance that came, and Jordan, Jess, Del, Steph, G. So good. That was a really, really good time. And I feel like that was like the first moment where I realized we could gather people about this. There were so many people there, even from New Jersey, that I just didn't expect to come.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was the first moment I realized like, yo, we really actually might be onto something. I know it probably clicked for other people earlier than that, but I feel like for me, it didn't fully click until.
I mean, that was the first big event that we did. It's one thing to have a Bible study in our home and another thing to try to invite. It's very similar to like starting, our first service that we launched, like truly trying to invite and market it to everyone that we know. Come to our Christmas party, celebrate with us. We're doing this thing. Like, will you be there? And I mean, the room was pretty full. It was a good time. So I think it was kind of a test in like, can we gather people, and then can we celebrate this moment?
That's
Definitely
right.
Look back fondly on that.
Yeah. Cool.
So start of the new year, you stepped off working for Renaissance and were just like fully working for Eden. So what did that look like, trying to establish partnerships and meet people here in the area when you got to do that full time?
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing that I really wanted to do was establish deep roots in specific ways. And so what we did, you and I think, worked really early to just establish what the culture of the church is going to be like. I think before we even had people, we had thought long and prayed very hard about the way we were going to form people. And we made a culture playbook, and a very specific culture playbook that gets overly specific about how we will operate as a church. And I think because of that, I noticed that our two missional focuses were, like the ways we're going to be narrowly focused in the community on like blessing the community. And so I just started like trying to plant roots in those areas. And the two for us are youth engagement and economic development. And so I was just like, I'm going to go play basketball every morning that I can at the recreation center in the mornings. They had an open gym for free for residents. And I'm going to go to the same coffee shops, and whichever ones are more receptive are the one I'm going to actually go to more frequently. And, or just more open and friendly, I guess. Not receptive, because I don't think I was presenting anything yet, and just build relationships and just actually be a benefit to people. And so that was what that was like in the beginning. I think I'm trying to find ways to evangelize, and trying to find ways to just bless people with our presence, consistent presence places. So going to the same coffee shop, shout out to Iconic Coffee, LeVar Thomas and Mariah. Still love going there as frequently as we possibly can. And yeah, I think that was where it started. Just trying to be a consistent face in important places in our community.
Yeah. That was before we had office at.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that you were able to just like every day, if you wanted to choose a different coffee shop, different restaurant, like go work and just meet people and talk to people, build relationships, which was very strategic. I think that that's a good plan for people to do.
Yeah. That's real. Yeah, that's what it looked like. So then we pretty much offboarded in January and then had a 9-month runway to the grand opening. So it's establishing all those local partnerships and established that playbook. We turned from asking fundraising with organizations to then fundraising with families, which...
Yeah, what's that like? You take this one. In
our isolated experience, I don't know. We had a lot of difficulty fundraising with families and individuals. I don't know. And I don't know. At this point, I kind of just want to chalk it up to that. I needed to grow a lot in the way that I ask people, I guess. Because it was really weird, man. It was like pulling teeth. And, here I am, like I've worked my whole life, right? I was homeless when I was 5 years old. And I've worked my whole life since that moment, literally, to never be in a position again where I have to ask anybody for money or anybody for anything, let alone money. But here I am. The Lord is hilarious.
Full
in a
circle.
Position, where I'm asking people for things, and I just never wanted to be there. And but here we are. And so I feel like whenever we would get weirdness around asking. I think I started to personalize it, honestly, which is just food for thought. Don't do that. Because you just never know what someone has experienced. in fundraising conversations before. You don't know who has gone before you and even maybe asked this same person who you think super fondly of, or you think you guys are actually friends or family or close or whatever. You don't know what they've experienced. You don't know the types of conversations they've had around these things. You don't know the hurt that they may have experienced around that, and that they might be carrying into a conversation with you. And then believing things that aren't true about the conversation with you. And so, again, I don't know. I think I started to personalize it. And so I just kind of needed to step back. But even in the midst of that, like watching God, I feel like this was the first moment with weirdness in asking families, and having fundraising conversations. I started to realize like, yo, God really shifted some things. I started to realize that over and over, that God was putting people into place that we just never would have expected. I mean, we had one family that knows us the least, who pretty much single-handedly met our entire like individual fundraising goal that we barely know, in the midst of all this, all the other conversations we were having that were going way differently than I thought that they would. It was like another wow moment of God just providing and being like, it's this very specific phrase I feel like I've sensed over and over again through this process, which is, it's not who you think it's going to be. And that just happened in so many, not just with money. Money makes people funny, so I kind of want to leave that conversation right now anyway. But I just feel like even beyond money, just with people and places and things and businesses and city officials and leaders in the community that would be involved, that would have wound up being involved in Eden Church up until this point. We're now 3 weeks past our grand opening, like as of the recording of this. It just always along the way has been people that we never would have thought, over and over and over again. And it's just such a beautiful thing, honestly, because we've been in a place time and time again where we've literally had to rely on God or else.
Yeah. I do feel like that really has grown my faith and helped just solidify, like, this really is God's church that he's building. It's not us. And clearly he's using us, but we didn't come in with, a whole team of people, and we didn't come in with a bunch of money from our family and friends. It really was God putting it specifically on the hearts and minds of people in this community to come and build relationships with that were brand new. And then on the hearts and minds of people, whether they were like a church in Texas or, Tennessee, all around, like this connection that you had with that individual that ended up being like a large, donor, like that was God. That was absolutely God. Real quick, I do want to say that I think when it does come to, asking people and reaching out for money, like that is going to be part of church planting. And so there's no way of getting around that. But as clear as you can communicate, I think is key. And also just like with so much grace, as Brandon said, one thing we were really sure to do as well is to not, part of probably why we didn't plant with any team, and this comes into the money conversation too, is just, we tried not to be the Holy Spirit for anyone.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I think a lot of harm has been done in the name of, like, hey, I was praying and I felt your name come up, and would you move across the country with me and my family and leave your job to do this thing? And it's like, we tried to pump the brakes, and just not participate in that type of building of a team or fundraising, because I think if the Holy Spirit really is speaking that like this person would be great for the team, then he should be saying that to them too, and it's on them to obey. And so I just wanted to put that out there as well. I think anyone who's thinking about planting should really carefully navigate those conversations and pray for people. You can always pray that the Lord would reveal it to them. But you're not the Holy Spirit.
Amen. That's very well said. And I just feel like it's in this exact moment too, where like God just started to show us like, I am doing something brand new, not only in North Jersey, but also in you, Brandon and Malia, right? Like, I feel like he was beginning to break us from a lot of old things, old ways, old habits, old alliances, and even old relationships that we had that we were relying on. And I don't know, he just started putting us in a place where he really had to guide our every step. And yeah, we just watched him do just that for the next several months. So yeah, anyway, February, we talked about that already, our culture playbook, all that good stuff. I started to notice too, like as we got toward March and doing our first Easter egg hunt, when we were having conversations with people and beginning to do all these different things, we started to notice that as we nailed our language down and like, who are we communicating to and how do you want to communicate to them? A lot of people started to be like, yo, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Or it almost was like we were putting words to this heart longing that they've had for authentic connection specifically.
Yeah.
I think of all of our values, that is the one. Yeah. I feel like authentic connection people have just been longing for, like we have. And I don't know. It just was a really good thing that I feel like we established that early on, like who we're going to be and we're going to drive toward this. I'm not just saying this in like an Instagram post. Like this is actually a value of our community that we're going to lean into over and over and over again until we're blue in the face and until people are tired of us saying it. But yeah, I don't know. When you think about that Easter egg hunt that we had, are there any specific moments from that you remember, or that, I don't know, what was good about that? Like, why did we wind up doing that? Like, what came of it?
I think the biggest thing for me was that we partnered with the city. So this was, Hackensack City putting on an Easter egg hunt, which, right, is a local government, like usually not that open to partnering with the church. So I think that was a big win. And then we didn't have to do a whole lot. They already were going to buy the eggs and the candy. We just got to show up and sort of partner with them with what they were already doing. I think that was a huge help because they were able to, one, this is an event they do every year. So people were already going to come and they were expecting it. So there was just like a natural audience that was going to be there that we could meet and bless and hopefully get the word out about Eden Church. But, as a new church coming in and we're fundraising for every dollar that we can spend, that just helped us with like marketing, with not having to buy all the supplies. I think that was a strategic event and already helped us get the foot in the door with like our local government, which you've continued to foster relationships with, board members and stuff like that. So I think that was really big for that reason. Mm-hmm. I think it also was the first time I realized how big our Hispanic population is in this area. Right. And we started to think through like, okay, do we potentially have a, Spanish service or ministry? Do we buy Spanish Bibles? Like, how do we meet the needs in this community for all the people who live here?
Mm-hmm. That's real. Yeah. And that was one of our big things, leaning into our community focuses again, youth engagement, right? The city has a big event they do every year, Easter egg hunt. And a lot of cities are like that. A lot of towns, counties are like that. And so it was really good to have that kind of easy lift. The one big miss was that we failed to collect any information at the Easter egg hunt. We had like set up an Eventbrite. We were still trying to figure this out. And that is one thing that I would always suggest, having some super creative way to collect information. And I didn't realize that I needed to do stuff like this until we started talking to Rick Burge more consistently and got into SLN officially, because that has really changed the game on how many people we're able to stay in contact with and pray with and all these things down the road when we actually capture their information.
Right.
Anyway, we captured nobody's information, but we handed out lots of cotton candy. So at least people associated us positively. So it's not like it was all a failure, but that was just a big, big miss. There were like 250 families there. That was probably that definitely wound up being our biggest, second biggest pre-launch event, second to Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
But Yeah, we captured no information. So.
Well, brand recognition, at the very least. And we wanted to bless the community. We definitely did that.
Right. No, that's good. I wonder, doing things like that and like showing up no strings attached and trying to just bless people, do you think sometimes that might rub leaders in the community the wrong way sometimes?
Potentially, because I mean, a lot of businesses show up to stuff like that, and you know, they do want something from people. Like, they're not really just there to bless with open hands. I think that as a church and coming in as people who like believe that we're blessed to be a blessing, and we want to just give things away expecting nothing back, that's a pretty radical idea. So I could see that rubbing people the wrong way. I also think in the Northeast and this greater New York area, like, people just aren't as friendly or used to, like, you know, maybe Southern hospitality kind of mindset where it's just like you wave at somebody like, what are you trying to just give me something for free? Like, what's the catch? So there's kind of that too. Is that what you're thinking?
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here about how that could be perceived sometimes, because we genuinely do just want to bless people, but that's just not normal around here. And so I don't know. I wonder sometimes people see us do that and they're like, they're setting y'all up for some big favor they want to ask you or something like that, or they're trying to do something weird. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I just wonder sometimes what with us genuinely doing that when no one else is, even other churches, a lot of times, if I'm allowed to say that. I feel like, you know, going outside of our four walls, outside of our office, outside of our worship space on Sundays to do these benevolent things in the community is just not normal around here.
Yeah, it is not normal.
Yeah, anyway, I feel like it could be perceived all sorts of ways. But anyway, rapid fire. Let's land the plane and get through some of these. Yeah, this is a one take recording, by the way. And we're noticing that we're coming up on an hour here. So we're going to speed through some of these last months so that we don't have to do a part 3. Amen?
Amen.
All right. April. So we did we left off in March, right? Yeah. So April, we did Medley's Bayou, which was like Medley Sunday. That was a really dope event. We did like a community brunch.
Yeah, that was fun.
And our first time using
Soul
church
Food
candy.
Sunday.
Crazy. Game changer.
Yeah, they killed it.
Oh, wait, disclaimer, this audio is not allowed to be used for any other ads or anything like that. But yo, church candy, and this is not a paid ad. Church candy is a social media marketing tool specifically for churches. I think they could maybe consider changing their name or something very soon. But I'll shout out to Brady. But yeah, they're incredible. They have figured out how to use some of the newest features in meta marketing, which is an information capture. And it's hard to explain to people who don't already understand marketing. But essentially what you need to understand is that Meta Facebook uses, they're always creating new things and new layers to their technology, and they incentivize people for using the new layers. So it takes a lot of knowledge, expertise, and awareness to even know they've created something new, let alone know how to leverage it properly. So Church Candy has mastered one of their newest features that acts as a lead generating tool that can be used for businesses, but you can also tweak it into a church, like plan your visit advertisement on Instagram and Facebook. And if I spent hours, I could probably figure out how to do it, but that seems like a waste of time to me if I could just pay Church Candy too. And man, it works. It just works. You film a short video. I think we had to nail our messaging though. I feel like if we didn't have our messaging nailed down, like who we were talking to and how we were talking to them consistently, it wouldn't work as well as it does for us.
Right.
But yeah, you just shoot a short video, send it to them. They pop it up for you, edit it, set up the whole thing. You just give them the money to do it. Literally, you just give them the money and a video and some photos. Yeah. And they're good from there. And it had that one event alone probably generated 110 people for us who were interested in eating church.
What was the thought behind the brunch? Like, how did you come up with that idea?
It was a similar idea to the Christmas party, but a little bit more targeted. Where the Christmas party was literally just fun, and there was 30 seconds of what we're doing and a toast.
Mm-hmm.
Medley Sunday was more trying to introduce people to deeper parts of our culture, what our sound might feel like. You know, we had a jazz set, and we tend to have pretty jazzy music. We do have professional musicians and extremely talented vocalists, if I might add, on Sundays at Eden Church today. And that was us giving people a glimpse of what it was going to be like. And then also me getting up and doing, you know, a couple minutes spiel about our culture and about where we're heading and why we're doing this. And then thirdly, just fun. We had games and things like that. You could win things. You know, I feel like those are all aspects of our community that are unique, that we're not afraid to laugh and have fun and cut up and dance. And we are not afraid to have music that might sound a little different because we feel like it speaks to this culture specifically. And and we're going to also be very forthright about who we are, because we think that in all sorts of injustices thrive in ambiguity. And so we think clarity is kindness, and we are going to be very clear, not being mean, but we're going to be very clear so that you can know, yeah, this is for me. This is what I've been looking for. And I think I'm going to keep going, or like, nah, actually, thanks for being clear, because that's not for me. And I'm going to go elsewhere. Like, that's good. It's better for you to know 2 weeks in than 2 years in. You finally feel like you got okie doked after giving your life to something for 2 years and all this time. Anyway, and then May, I was in a guest preaching tornado. Oh my gosh.
Tell us, how did that happen?
Just not saying no.
Did that happen?
April, May, June, July. I preached way too much other places. I don't know. I started realizing church planting that I want to say yes to so much, kind of like we talked about earlier, but you're going to disappoint somebody at some point, and you need to just decide early on who that's going to be. Otherwise, like I did, you're going to wind up disappointing people you don't want to disappoint. So we wound up at the end of that whole guest preaching tornado disappointing one of our favorite partners, Suncrest, and a family in Indiana that is super important to us. And because this SLT shut down my final preaching trip, that was also supposed to be a fun trip with the family that we really care about. And that was sad. I feel like of all the people that I would have, if you had lined up all the places I preached and was like, choose one of these to disappoint right now, they would have literally been last.
Right.
But then they wound up being the only ones that I wound up having to be like, actually, I'm not coming anymore. And that, I don't know, that was really an eye opener for me, that I need to just get better at lining it up and being like, who am I disappointing today? Because somebody's going to have to get disappointed. And I need to make sure that that decision doesn't get made for me.
Yeah. I think too, you know, it is really tempting, as you said, to say yes to everything in the pre-launch phase and just like work your tail off. And yes, you do need to work hard and you will be stretched, but you also have to be smart. Like you don't want to burn out before you even launch. And I think part of why you ended up, you know, not being able to go preach at that church was because we were getting so close to my due date. And I think it's just so important to work at the pace of your family. Like, yes, we were stretched and, you know, just going crazy pre-launch as we should. But there was a sense of like, is this a good idea? Like this, it was just a little too close to when potentially I would be giving birth. And that wasn't something that you wanted to miss because you were in a state, you know, in the Midwest, far away. Yeah. So just be mindful, like setting some healthy boundaries and knowing when to say no for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And during that same time, Julius was born, like you said, our second son, very adorable, super handsome guy. And it was great. Honestly, I really love Julius so much. And as we all do. And we also finally locked in a location after months of looking. It was honestly getting to the point where we thought we might have to push back our grand opening. And looking back, we probably could have pushed it back logistically.
Wouldn't have been a bad thing. Yeah.
Wouldn't have been bad to have a longer runway. I feel like that's the conundrum of like, that's the tension of just wanting to go and just being, let's just start, but also knowing logistically you would be, your runway can never be too short. I don't think. I didn't believe that when I first heard it.
You mean too long?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, your runway can never be too long. Yes. And I didn't believe that when I first heard it. But now having launched on what I felt like could have been a longer runway, I'm like, oh yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it. You could always take more time to
Would have been
prepare.
nice to have more time.
Yeah, you can always find something. We finally found a location, which wound up being my own middle school that I went to, and was a terrible, terrible student at that school. So redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Talked to 55 locations or something like that, and that was our only yes.
Yeah,
our only yes, and we took it. That was it.
So, what kind of pivot did you make in this time? Like, we've got a location now, we're getting closer to pre-launch. How did you go about deciding like who to invest in, like what relationships to make? Because it's just getting closer to launch. What did that look like?
Yeah, at this point, we had already like 450 people in our planning center instance, which just means those are all the people that are like, have filled something out or said something to affiliate themselves with Eden Church specifically. Doesn't mean our church was 450 people at all. We're still not there. I've still never seen that many people at one thing, but that's just to say that I felt like we had enough people that I needed to just be investing in who already was associating themselves as Eden in some capacity. So I think my focus started to really shift from like extreme evangelism, like tell everybody more and more, tell more people to like still telling more people. But then also, like we have a church already, really. You know, I know we're not launching services for a couple months, but we got people going through real things, needing real prayer and real deliverance. And I think that's what led to our first baptisms happening before we ever even launched, because we did shift our focus to, okay, we can't just keep on being like more people. Like we had to start balancing that with like, nah, God has already drawn some people our way, and we genuinely do love them and want to care for them well. And so we definitely pumped the brakes on some of the rapid evangelism we were doing to just start caring for people broadly. And so we, formed our dream team and just started pouring into people, being okay doing a couple things that were slightly smaller, that weren't necessarily advertised and like all on our Instagram and stuff. Just like having people over our home.
Yeah, cookouts at the house.
Cookouts at the crib, and just more stuff that was for like people who were already around and not just all the big Cinco de Mayo or whatever,
Does that mean you started to try to develop leaders and build teams? When did that come into play? Yeah,
I probably started developing internal leaders too late. I feel like this is part of my, again, saying yes to too many things and being a little, I don't want to say too generous, because I don't think there's a such thing, but I wanted to try to develop leaders as selflessly as possible, and not just like, only developing leaders because they're going to stay at Eden long term, whatever. And I tried to be too open handed, I think, at first, and then realized that just wasn't wise in this season. As righteous as I think I'm being super kind and like pouring a ton into people who don't really want anything to do with Eden Church. It just wasn't wise. I thought I was being real noble, but I think really I was just being unwise with my time. And so I started realizing that a little later than I wish I did, that I really do more need to selfishly in this season only develop leaders who have committed to Eden. And so I just made that shift more abruptly than I wanted to, honestly, like not even really communicating it clearly that I was making that shift, if I'm being real, because I noticed it too late. And I was like, I don't have time to iron this back out. I just actually need to refocus on people God has ignited to help build this community, this beautiful, benevolent community unto the glory of Jesus. And so, yeah, we started focusing on our coordinators and trying to build out different teams. But it was funny even watching that, as we started getting into our preview services and stuff, and seeing people who were over or in certain teams go through a service and then be like, wait, nah, I'm helping out over here. We need help over here. I'm going to do this, like just watching God work in people's hearts. and not just us like asking people to do random stuff that they didn't even want to do. Oh, anyway, I said that my focus shifted from being fake noble to actually just unapologetically being used by God to build teams and develop leaders at Eden specifically, which I'm still doing in the season now. And I get lots of calls to do other things, but I said no. Because now guest preaching is number one on my to-don't list. You got to have a to-do list. You also got to have a to-don't list. And guest preaching is number one on mine now. And developing other people that don't go to Eden. It's number two.
Don't got time. Right.
I genuinely don't. Not right now. I don't.
So what did September look like? Moving into, pre-launch season.
That was so dope. We had our first baptisms the very first day of September in our backyard above ground pool. Ooh. Crazy. My own son, Titus, got baptized.
That was so special.
And if I wasn't such a thug, maybe I would have cried, but but man, I just can't believe it still that we baptized people before we ever even had a worship service.
I know.
To me, but God just started to make it super clear, like, y'all got a timeline. I'm working on my own timeline, baby. Like, I'm not waiting for y'all. And God just really showed it that he was ready to start. And yeah, we started to do that. Then also September, we had the portable church weekend. A couple weeks later, we did apple picking. And then had a portable church weekend, which, I'm probably saying this out of my bitterness a little. I feel like if I could do it over again, leaving many, many details out, I would suggest, I would like to try just getting local experts in 3 areas, like in the auditorium, audiovisual, marketing person to like help make signs, the right sign, easy signs, and just a few. And then like an early education professional to help us set up the proper kids setup where we have it. And I feel like that would have helped us build a local network with those people.
Right.
We would have been pumping the dollars we have raised into our own community rather than some other company that I don't even know where they're headquartered, if I'm being honest, maybe Michigan. And I think it would have been more specific to what we wanted and needed. And we would have saved a lot of money. That's my hypothesis. I have not tried this or tested it. We obviously went with a whole very expensive package from Portable Church, but I don't know.
Now, let me share, though, Portable Church, one thing that they do really, really well is, it's in their name. They are there specifically for churches who need to tear down and set up every Sunday. That's true. So when we purchased our trailer from them, you unload the trailer and it's just full of these like boxes on wheels that go in and out real easy. You slide them out, you pull them into the room that they're supposed to be in, and then everything you need in that room, whether it's the auditorium or the kids or hospitality, it's all organized very well and like packaged in there very well to be done quickly and efficiently. I think that might have been really hard to find and replace. So honestly, there's probably a way to marry those two ideas together, but Portable Church does do that very well. I remember when we were setting up the kids area and getting out, toys for the kids and like a changing table, mats to play on and stuff like that. Some of it was just clearly thought through. Is this like a baby changing station that can be set up in like one click of a button rather than like 3? You know how some strollers, it's like you got to grab it with 2 handles and then like click this thing and then pull that strap. It was like everything just had one touch point. You could just open it up, fold it real quick.
And even like the signs, literally our signs, they're stored in a way and all that stuff that you literally just slap the feet on and prop them down. And you take the feet off and put them away. Like it's super easy.
Yeah. So they do that well.
We have a small team setting up like 15 signs inside just because of how easy the signs are to set up. That Portable Church just showed us. We didn't have to do any research for that. So there's a lot of convenience in it for sure.
It's another reason to have a longer runway before you launch if you can, because then you can really, if you have a location nailed down, then you can plan for a while what's needed in the space and start to make those purchases.
Right.
We were a little bit in a bind with timing.
Anyway, that's how not to plan a church for the most part, because that brings us up to our grand opening. We only had 2 preview services, and it was like 3 weeks before our launch.
Right.
Which I don't recommend. I do actually recommend what SLN recommends, which is 3 months before launch, at least, doing your preview services. Because you really do, when you do your first preview service, you have a month's worth of work, you find, in gaps and things that need to be fixed and purchased and replaced even, or just things you thought you needed that you didn't return, like just so many different things. You have a month's worth of work. And so we wound up just doing 2 months worth of work in 3 weeks before our grand opening. And then honestly, I feel like even every week now since we've opened, we've had like deep meetings, like, doing a bunch of things. And so it would have definitely have been preferred, but honestly, God's been using it, man. 23 people over the first 2 weeks gave their lives to Jesus. Got baptisms scheduled already in November. And it's just, things are rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing it.
How are you feeling?
Crazy. It has been a roller coaster for sure, but it does feel like, the roller coaster is winding down. We're over some of the biggest jumps and hurdles, and it still feels crazy. It still feels overwhelming, and like my capacity is being stretched. But I know that this is a season, and I look forward to, as more people come on board or stick around for a while and then want to help lead in different capacities, that we can sort of step back and it won't be like so much is just on our plate.
Right.
So I look forward to that.
It's true.
For sure.
Yeah. It's one of the things I've noticed, and I keep hearing that church planting is a marathon. And really, I feel like it's a lot more like a track meet. Like in a track meet, any track athlete, if you're not one, you might not know that you have to run more than one event. Like you might know, like, Sydney McLaughlin is a beast at the 400-meter hurdles, but she's also good at other events. Typically they make you do multiple events. And, I feel like it's kind of like year 0 and year 1 are like running an 800-meter dash, like the longest sprint you can possibly run. You are running full speed for 2 whole laps. And then maybe you get a break somewhere. And then you got to run again. And I think the race you run after that is the 4x4, the 4x400-meter relay. Just over and over. And you got to have a team of people to run that with you. And I don't know. I'm just so grateful for the people that God has brought our way to be on our team. Like Jabari and Michelle and James and Jen and Sara, Nexus, Priscilla, like JB, Jane. Oh my God. I can go down the list of 40 people. Natalie, that just like, man, Sam, Lexi, like that just have showed up and are like just allowing God to use their gifts and talents and their heart to just bless so many people. And like, you can't run that 4x4 without a good team. And I'm just,
God's really brought some awesome people to Eden Church. We are so blessed.
Our team is so dope, and I love them so much.
Yeah, I think that's like the most special thing is when you actually, it's so crazy, right? Just going from like, we're going to play in a church. We don't know who's going to be there. And again, like being people where it was just us and there wasn't like this team with us, like, oh, our best friends are coming with us or something. It was just us. And like to see the friendships made and the people who are coming and serving consistently, and their hearts and like the desires that align with ours and what we're trying to build. It's so beautiful. Like I knew it would be awesome in my head, thinking about like having a church one day, what that would look like. But when those people actually materialize and walk alongside you, there's nothing like it.
Right. Well, one take wonders. This concludes our 2-part series of how not to plant a church. Obviously the title is a joke, but I don't know. I hope you all learned some things. I hope that you learn some things to do, some things not to do. If you listen to this whole thing, I'm imagining that you are interested in church planting, quite honestly, because this is just a lot of
1.5.
Yeah, no, I would have listened to it on 3-speed if I could. This is a lot of yapping, but if you listen to this, I'm assuming that you are interested in church planting. So be assured of our prayers for you. And if you are interested in planting a church in New Jersey specifically, hit us up.